He woke with a gasp, cold stone floor beneath him, strange metallic scent in the air. Where was he? He sat up, head pounding, memories of fog. He remembered a train station, a blinding light, then nothing. This place was alien. Dark alleys twisted between buildings that scraped the sky, the air hummed with a low, constant vibration. He was alone, utterly alone. He pushed himself to his feet. His body ached. He had no idea how long he'd been unconscious. His pockets were empty, except for a crumpled piece of paper. He smoothed it out with shaking hands. A single word was scrawled on it. Find. Find what? Find who? The silence around him was unnerving, broken only by the distant, echoing howl that sent chills down his spine. He had to get out of this place. He stumbled out of the alleyway and into the street. The city unfolded before him, a labyrinth of towering structures and winding streets. Strange symbols adorned the buildings, glowing faintly in the dim light. The few people he saw moved like shadows, their faces hidden beneath hoods and scarves. No one met his gaze. The air was thick with whispers, voices he couldn't quite make out. They seemed to come from the very walls themselves, murmuring secrets in a language he didn't understand. He pressed his hands to his ears, trying to block out the sound, but it was no use. The whispers followed him, growing louder with every step he took. Panic welled up inside him. He had to escape this nightmare. He approached a figure huddled in a doorway, their face obscured by a thick hood. "Excuse me," he said, his voice hoarse. "Can you tell me where I am?" The figure didn't move. He tried again, louder this time. "Please, I need help." The figure slowly raised its head, and for a brief moment their eyes met. He recoiled in horror. The figure's face was pale and gaunt, their eyes hollow and filled with an ancient sadness. They opened their mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. Only a low, guttural moan that sent shivers down his spine. He turned and fled, the whispers chasing after him. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs screamed for mercy. Finally, he collapsed on a bench in a small, deserted park. The air here seemed a little clearer, the whispers a little quieter. He looked up at the towering structures that surrounded him, their glass surfaces reflecting the strange, ethereal glow of the city. He had never seen anything like it before. He closed his eyes, trying to make sense of it all. How had he gotten here? What was this place? And why did he feel like he was being watched? He opened his eyes again, a sudden thought striking him. The note. Find. Find what? He pulled the crumpled piece of paper out of his pocket and stared at the single word scrawled across it. He had to find something. But what? As he sat there, he noticed something strange. The whispers, which had faded slightly while he was in the park, were starting to return. And this time, they seemed to be getting closer. He could almost make out words now, but they were still too faint to understand. He stood up, his heart pounding in his chest. He had a bad feeling about this. He decided to retrace his steps, hoping to find something, anything that could help him understand what was going on. He walked for what felt like hours, the city unfolding before him like a surreal and terrifying dream. The streets were deserted, the buildings looming over him like silent sentinels. The whispers followed him wherever he went, growing louder and more insistent with every passing moment. He tried to ignore them, but it was no use. They seemed to be seeping into his mind, planting seeds of doubt and fear. He felt himself starting to lose his grip on reality. Was he going mad? He stopped at a street corner, his head spinning. He had to get a hold of himself. He needed to think clearly if he was going to find a way out of this. He took a deep breath and tried to focus. He looked around at his surroundings, trying to spot anything familiar. That's when he saw it. A small, flickering light in the distance. He squinted, trying to make it out. It looked like a sign. He started walking towards it, his pace quickening with each step. As he got closer, he could see that it was a neon sign, but the words were obscured by grime and decay. He reached out and brushed away the dirt with his hand. The sign flickered once more, and then the words came into focus. The Glass Menagerie. The name sent a shiver down his spine. He didn't know why, but he felt drawn to this place, like it held the answers he was looking for. He pushed open the door and stepped inside. The interior was dark and smoky, lit only by a few flickering candles. The air was thick with the smell of stale beer and something else he couldn't quite place. There were a handful of patrons scattered around the room, but they all looked as lost and out of place as he felt. He made his way to the bar and took a seat. The bartender, a burly man with a shaved head and a goatee, gave him a cursory glance before asking, "What'll it be?" His throat was dry, but he didn't feel like drinking. "Just water, please," he said. The bartender grunted and poured him a glass. As he took a sip, he noticed something strange. The whispers, which had been following him relentlessly, had disappeared. He looked around the room, but there was no sign of them. It was as if they had never existed. He glanced up at the mirror behind the bar and froze. Staring back at him wasn't his own reflection, but a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes. It smiled, a slow, predatory grin that sent chills down his spine. He spun around, but there was no one there. His heart pounded in his chest as he realized the truth. He wasn't in his world anymore. He had somehow crossed over into another dimension, a place where the laws of reality were twisted and strange, and the figure in the mirror, that was him.